Reading with your kids.
Hola, niho, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moribule wanji, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very honored that you are joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Podcast Addict, Good Pods, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Jason Broughton. He is the director of the National Library Service. Before we invite Jason into the studio, we want to invite you to connect with us on social media. Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Reading With Your Kids on TikTok. We have a great Reading With Your Kids page on Pinterest, and if you are on Twitter, you can follow us at Jedley Magic. And we would love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Please be sure to click on the contact button up at the top of the page to let us know what we're doing right. Let us know what we could be doing better. Let us know who you would like to hear on a future episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Join us right now from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. I'm really excited today. Our guest is the director of the National Library Service. Please welcome to the show, Jason Broughton. Hey, Jason, how are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I am really pleased to be here. And I know it took us a little bit of time based on my schedules, but I am just humbled and happy to be here with you.
Well, you know, all the best things come to those who wait and have patience.
Oh, I would definitely say, and I don't want to say you save the best for last, but I think I have a lot to discuss. That'll be really, really wonderful for people to think about and also just know about what we do.
Yeah. So tell us about the National Library. People are familiar with their school libraries and their local public libraries and their little free libraries, but I don't think a lot of people know what the National Library Service is all about.
All right, so let me try to give you a snapshot, because I know we have a little bit of time, and I can be a conversationalist, so I love to talk. So just know that that's a dangerous thing with me. But within that, I would say the National Library Service is a part of the Library of Congress. We have been around for 91 years, celebrating our 91st. With this year. 90 was last year, which was really, really nice. And with that, our full name is the National Library Service for the Blind and Print Disabled. And within that, we are a free service that allows people to have access to materials who qualify for them, in which they can have things what are known as talking books, which is kind of like a thumb drive in the sense that's in a specific shell-style cartridge that goes into a unique device, along with Braille and a host of other things for people who cannot, in a sense, read standard, I would say, print within that. And again, there's a little bit of an eligibility requirement. We make this, however, accessible through a network of libraries. We have 94 of them across the country and in U.S. territories. And within that, it has access to books, magazines, musical scores, and a host of other things. The way I like to describe it is whatever you and I, as a sighted person, have access to, people who are visually impaired or print disabled should also have access to. And that is the goal of our service within that. We have, I would say, a catalog that is quite extensive. And there's some other things I'll talk about later on that has helped to expand our, I would say, collection in a variety of different ways that people might not know about. And within it, it's called the Marrakesh Treaty, in which we have agreements that we are able to receive and also send different types of materials from across the world.
Wow. That's amazing. Now, 91 years ago, back in the 80s, we passed the Americans with Disabilities Act. But this service was created long before that. Whose brainchild was this?
Oh, my goodness. This came, I don't know the specifics, but I definitely was one of the president's wives had a conversation about the need to ensure that materials in the Library of Congress, because there were basically, these reading rooms. And in part of that, we had a war in which a lot of the veterans within that situation were not kind of afforded the same types of items. And that began the conversation to kind of establish a reading room that allowed those with these types of disabilities, particularly vision impairment, at the time basically blind and a host of other things, to have access to that. Now, when I state that, here's why it's very unique. As a part of our, I would say, mission, which is really a mandate that's in legislation, we have two specific caveats that we must always adhere to, and that is going to be to provide resources for the blind and what we call the print disabled. The former word used to be kind of like handicapped. We no longer use that. That has been kind of removed and updated in a sense. And the other is to veterans. And because of that, those are our main two areas. But within that, we have an umbrella of things that are afforded us a wonderful opportunity to provide services to a host of people within that umbrella. And in coming on your show today, one of the areas that people might not know that we also are navigating to provide services is to young people and young adults, particularly children. And for those parents who might not know, that we would be doing this through reading disabilities can also qualify for our service as well.
So a kid who is struggling with a severe form of dyslexia, perhaps? Dyslexia,
yes.
Or other types of learning challenges?
You hit the nail on the head within that. What we want to make sure, which I know a lot of your listeners do, is that people really understand, I would say probably on your show, what the value of literacy means and how it can open the door to a young person's, I would say, life and pretty much change it forever. A book does do that for you. And within that, what we try to do is to make sure that children of all calibers who are eligible for our program have access to that. And that can come in a whole host of ways in looking at different types of titles. This is a little bit different than, I would say, we don't do, for example, textbooks. We do all the other types of things. And again, it can come in a whole host of formats. As I said, it could come through what is known as the Talking Book Service, an audio cartridge. It can also come online on your own device, which we have a thing called Bard, which is our online platform where it can be delivered to you. We also have Braille. And if we have a little bit of time, I can even talk about some technological advances in which we have e-Braille. Now, people might find that kind of like, what do you mean e-Braille? Yes, we now have devices, if you can imagine it, a little device, something like a rectangular object, and it has what are known as pins instead of the dots. Those dots have been transformed into metal pins that actually can move up and down as a person's finger rolls across that and allows it to kind of be like a movable style of, I would say, communication. And it's getting faster and it's getting better. And within that, we are seen as, I would say, a leader on the frontier of technology with this. That might sound kind of interesting for people to know that the government on this one is kind of not taking lead, but definitely amongst the pack. And we are doing a lot of prototypes. We have a pilot out across the country in which we've just had a lot of enthusiasm on, I would say, piloting this device where people want to kind of come into the pilot because when they have received it, they cannot believe that there's now technology that allows them to electronically play with Braille.
That's really amazing. And what a wonderful gift that is to folks who didn't have access to that before.
You are fully correct on that. It can be life-changing is the best way to say that. Now, of course, if anything, which is a total separate conversation, younger people have the advantage because they are going to be growing up as a digital native. If people haven't heard those types of terms, digital native, you kind of born with the technology. It's kind of there with you. We normally also have a different population. In other words, I like to say the mature crowd, which might not have had technology at the forefront, or persons who had to transition because of age and losing sight and vision. They then have to get used to learning the technology, and we try to make that as easy as possible. But young people coming into this, they are very adept, they're very skilled, and we see that as a bit of the way of the future. So within that, we have, again, as I said, a lot of things that I think they would be really, really pleased to note we have. One of our biggest things that, on top of our collection with children's books, young adult books, that people might not know is that we have the world's largest Braille music collection. Yes, okay. In the world. People might not know that. Now, when I say this, it probably, you'd have to come physically see it. We do offer tours, but not so much now. But we do, if you ever want to come visit in DC, we would have it to show it to you because it has a wonderful amount of information and a wonderful staff that deals with it. For example, it has method books if you want to, in a sense, learn a musical instrument. And we have had a lot of parents and children utilize that. We have training items. We also have musical scores, sheet music, and music appreciation style items, and a host of different types of musical genres, something for everybody. So we can go from jazz to religious to choral to a whole host of things. And if we don't have it, since that we are a library, we will try to work to find out how we can get you to someone who might know what you are seeking. We have people call us directly to say, I'm looking for this musical score or whatever else. I will say as a heartwarming thing, which my job is just wonderfully humbling, our organization and our network libraries will receive mail, phone calls from patrons, and I can give you one. I was the state librarian in Vermont before I was appointed in this position, and we used to receive these wonderful letters from patrons talking about the service. Well, when I arrived here, we ended up getting a wonderful letter that I just was just so, oh my goodness, not cry as a man, but you would say, oh, this is just heartwarming, where a person let us know that they were extremely proud of us being here for their child because they were going to have their first music recital at the Met, in a sense. Wow. And so within that, as a recital, I mean, think about that. You're doing big time recitals with us being an entity that could provide you the basic musical items for practice, instrumentation as a visually impaired person. What a life-changing thing. To actually be able to provide to people, in a sense, for things that some of us might not have really considered because we don't have to kind of navigate that world.
You, I think, hit the nail on the head, is that there's so much that challenges people that we don't think about. So many things that we take for granted day to day that other people, it's just a mountain that they're not able to get around without some assistance. And it's wonderful that as a nation we've made this a priority to help and to have a service like the National Library Service. Well,
I appreciate that. I would say one way of, in what you just said, one way if somebody wanted to kind of examine this is, and it is something I think a lot of people should always keep in mind. Life can change in an instant in a variety of ways that we might not have expected, and you want to know what you have access to. So if you wanted to kind of examine what Braille, for example, is, we have something that educators use, which is to introduce what we would say sighted children and sighted people to Braille and accessibility, because that's I would say our theme, is that we have a way of allowing people to do a color by number style activity. And if you go to our website, you can find that activity to kind of understand how Braille works and how you actually can kind of learn it. Because a lot of people sometimes don't think about, well, how does that really work? You know, feeling these dots. I will say that there was something that I found amusing, but it's really not amusing, is I did see someone try to do something nice, and I call it no good deed goes unpunished, which is Braille has a specific feel. You cannot just print out dots on a page and think that that is Braille and give that to a person. It's not going to work. So it does have a feel that goes along with it. But this activity, of course, would show you what that kind of translates into a vocabulary, which allows a person to feel what is being stated or said. I will say that technology that we have that is coming out in very soon, I would say a couple of years, it might sound kind of long, but very, very soon, the electronic Braille or the e-Braille, the pens are now moving so fast up and down that there might come a time rather soon, I've seen some wonderful prototypes, where a person can be in a presentation with a visual slide, and that slide could actually come onto this device and actually have the image where the person can feel the image of the slide. Wow. And what's on it. Imagine that, where we just didn't even have that before.
That's incredible.
Now, the thing is, everybody's going to want one when these things come out, and our goal is to try to figure out how to make that happen. So.
It's just, it's mind-boggling and in a really great way that we have folks who are looking and trying to solve these problems and challenges.
It definitely is. I would say this is a job that I deeply appreciate. It allows me to be in a world that allows myself to work with people. That's the other thing, too. I don't think that a lot of us have the experiences of working with people who might be visually impaired and also what we would call print disabled. Some people would say handicap, which we do not use. But it allows you to understand what it looks like to be fully inclusive and integrated when they're at the table. And when I say that, when it comes to a variety of things, when we have conversations about policy, discussions, devices, what we want to do, we have, of course, and we have visually impaired persons on staff. Mm-hmm. Fully, really there at the table, because guess what? There are things that I would never have thought about because I'm sighted that they pick up on that is astounding to me, and I am really blessed to be in the company of that, to understand that and make sure that we are doing what we say. One of the helpful things that we try to do, particularly that we are embarking upon, is to increase our children's collection. We have a simple mission. Now, when I say this, people are going to be kind of astounded. A simple mission that all may read. That's the mission. That's right there.
Yes.
That's the mission.
That's a beautiful mission.
I take that to Congress, and everybody's like, oh, there is no big statement. It is, oh, I see exactly what that means. That is it. It's very clear. And our goal is to try to do that. But again, centering around our conversation with children, as you talked about dyslexia, we definitely are looking at how we can help more parents who might not know this understand that their child can be eligible for our service. And within that, we want them to consider reviewing opportunities and options that we have. And there's a lot of things in addition to this that we also provide, in the sense of just connecting with different types of entities who also have other types of items, textbooks that are created for those who also have those types of needs. So we can also be like a clearinghouse and resource center to help people get what they need. And we give personalized service. You are talking to a person. So for those who don't like that automated, you call us. You might get one or two buttons, but we talk with our patrons, and they come from across the country and from overseas. Anywhere that there is an American citizen or a resident, they have access to our services on the planet.
That's amazing. And you're talking about people not knowing about the service. My beautiful wife just retired after teaching for 34 years in the Boston Public School
Well, congratulations. My mother was a teacher as well, did the same thing.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, she was a special needs teacher, and I am 99% sure that she was not aware that this service was available.
I would agree with you. We are trying to change that. People do know a variety of things, particularly in areas of special ed where they know about the IEP. Within that, we could be working in concert with a parent, and in some cases there are schools, but particularly specific schools, usually schools that are working with blind patrons, usually definitely know of us, and a host of other reasons. But when it comes to public schools or even parochial charter private schools, they might not know that we are available to assist them in helping provide materials for additional supplemental reading, leisure, love, labor, life, as I call them, the L's, in which we can help provide them those types of materials. And in some cases, we can have things that are provided to the child at school and also in some cases at home. So therefore, that can also be uniquely accommodated based on the eligibility in a variety of cases. Wow. So we are here to try to be, of course, helpful. I know some people in government who hear that phrase, well, outside of government, hear that phrase, and the government's trying to be helpful. We are a little bit different. This is the Library of Congress within that, and we really, truly want to be the library for the people, because that's what the Library of Congress is.
Well, that's a beautiful thing, and I was biting my tongue when you were saying government's trying to be helpful, and all those one-liners were jumping to my head, and I said, no, keep that down. But I am
quite sure.
When you think about our government, and it's trying to serve, what's the population of the country? 350 million people.
Yes.
It's a lot. And there are going to be people that fall through the cracks. And our goal is to make sure that we fill those cracks and and serve everybody and give everybody the opportunities that we all deserve.
Well, I agree. And when you say that, let me move to the opposite spectrum, but comes in a way in which we can also talk about intergenerational literacy and reading. You might be a parent, or you might have grandparents or aunts and uncles in your family who might need our service. We have things for them, but in our conversation today, if you are a family that is embarking upon literacy and conversation, or you have already been doing it and all of a sudden there are transitions, we are human, this is going to happen. Know that we can be that for you as well, where if you have your parents reading, or they're over with the grandkids or nieces and nephews and they're visiting, and they used to read a lot to them as a nice way to kind of connect, that can still be the case. We do have, in a sense, large print books that can be accessed. We also have a variety of things that can, in some cases, yes, be a little bit of a divergent way of participating, but maybe the book is just read aloud based upon one of our players. So the goal is, yes, it's a little bit different than where we were before. If there were some changes in our eyesight or even our capability of holding the book, think about it in the sense of saying, well, we still have a service that can help you do that. It still is where you're interacting with the child to help literacy form. And our goal is to make sure on an intergenerational way that also still occurs if families want to do that as well. It is definitely for our conversation today that we're talking more about the child themselves and the parents making those decisions to kind of say, hey, I didn't know this resource was available. But also think about it from a life, I would say, priority as a family in keeping literacy going across the spectrum of all who want to participate in helping a child learn about literacy and enjoy reading.
Yeah. One of the questions that I asked my beautiful wife when I launched this podcast is, I was guessing that most of the people who would turn in, are already part of the choir. It's like, yeah, I love to read with my kids and I want to learn more about it. But how can I get to those families, maybe in the inner city schools, who aren't reading? And one of the things that my wife and her friend said, well, a lot of the families that we serve, the parents can't read, or they can't read English, or they're working so hard. I never, in that conversation with them talking about the different challenges, it never occurred to me that some of the families aren't able to read. They're, as you said, print challenged, print disabled.
Correct. And what our service tries to do is to assist in that in a variety of ways. We will have conversations to find out what's the easiest thing. Of course, if you're fully blind, there's specific options that you're going to need. And within that, what we also try to do is we will assist in any form of training, in some cases, with the patron to navigate devices. And when I say that, NLS, again, works through the network of libraries that are in each state. On our website, you can find for your state what that network library is, even though we are the big federal entity. I like to call us a confederation. We kind of all are working together, but with boots on the ground all the way up to me, up to Dr. Hayden, in a sense, who's the Librarian of Congress, on making sure that this service, which a lot of people have told us that we love, we have, I would say wonderfully, which people might not know, full bipartisan support on this service.
Well, thank
That's
goodness,
something very rare.
and thank goodness it's there. Maybe we can sit down with everybody and say, look how this is working over here. This is good. When you guys come together, good things can happen. How about we do this?
That is correct. And within that, I would say if people want to learn more about us real quickly, you can go to our website, loc.gov/NLS, or if you just put in LOC or Library of Congress National Library Service, you will be taken to our website. You can also, if you are thinking about wanting your child to enroll, I can give you a number. It's 888-NLS-READ, read, or that's going to be 888-657-7323 to talk about eligibility for a child. But even if it's for an adult, don't worry. Call it. We will get you to the appropriate person to allow you to understand what options are available, what eligibility looks like, and how you can, in a sense, enroll in our service. Again, our goal is to try to make sure that we're providing a whole host of things. And as I talked about earlier, we have a treaty that was passed after 2010, I think more around 2013, 14, it was finally kind of finalized. And it's called the Marrakesh Treaty. And what it basically did is allow access to more foreign language collections for the Library of Congress. And so within that, we are able to obtain a variety of materials and resources in different foreign languages. So that's also an added benefit. Right now, we are just receiving a whole host of things. We have a lot of different books in a variety of different languages. In fact, if I were to open up this little report that I have, I just thought about this, and I'm sitting there talking to you, and I was like, I should open this report to tell people what the different types of languages are that we actually have. Of course, English is our predominant one, and I think a lot of people actually know that, but we definitely have Spanish. We also have some things that have come in from Poland. We have some things that have come in from the Middle East, and just a whole host of things that are unique to things that we might not have thought about in the sense of people actually wanting before. So we are extremely pleased to kind of know that we are kind of sharing items that can benefit people in the country who want to learn those languages or are able to read those languages or say, hey, you don't have this at all in English. What does it look like if this were available in a different language that I may be able to access? And that has allowed us to do that at this current moment. We are still, of course, growing and expanding this. The treaty is still very young, but it has begun to take off because of the requests that we are getting in a variety of things.
That's absolutely wonderful. So just to kind of review, if a parent is out there with a kid who is either totally blind or in some way challenged, they can call that number that you gave us,
yes.
888-READ-NLS?
888-NLS-READ.
NLS Read.
Or they can go just to the website, and the easiest way to me is just go into the search feature, put in Library of Congress, National Library Service, and it will take you to our homepage, and there you will find the information to contact us. That can be done online, in an email, a chat function, or a phone call. And yes, you will be speaking to a live person, which is wonderful to know for a lot of people. And we will begin to discuss with you what options are available.
Right. And is that something that a teacher could call
Yes.
just to get some more information?
Yes. We do work with schools when they contact us, and we can set up different types of things based on what they're actually seeking.
Yeah.
And again, that goes to full collection, musical scores, reading materials, a whole host of things that they might not know that could be afforded them, along with the parent can also call us separately and request their own things too. So it's not because you have one request with the school that blocks out the child if they're enrolled. That is a total separate request itself.
That's wonderful. Hey, you are so enthusiastic, and it's so proud of what you're doing. I just want to take a shot. Is there one thing that's on there? You told us about that e-reader where maybe
Yes.
at some point. Is there something else that's coming up on the horizon that you're really excited about?
Yes. This one's hard, and it's a prototype, and we're having to continue to examine it because it is hard. But if you can pull this off, it's something that a lot of unique vendors, for example, Amazon, is probably still trying to really refine and do perfectly. Google also. And that is going to be voice activation. So you're looking at voice activated devices for a person that is visually impaired or print disabled that would just speak and say, I would like this book. That device then searches the catalog and then begins to offer options. And if it is the way they would like, they pick the selection, and then the book is read to them the way they want.
Wow.
That would be the next generation of what we would like to do.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy we had this time to talk. I think there's probably we could probably talk for weeks about all the wonderful things that the National Library Service is doing. Is there something that we can do for the National Library Service? I know they're always, call your congressman to support us and all that kind of stuff. Do you have the support that you need?
I would definitely say we do, but we can always utilize more because our goal is to have more people know that we are here, and we have been here for 90 plus years. And yes, there are specific people who immediately know that we are here because they seek us out. But there are those who might not know that we are here for a variety of reasons. And for the Day Show, yes, with children, but we are also here for, as I call it, life transitional changes, which people might not have thought about, followed by even temporary disabilities. If you are on maternal leave, bed rest, workman's comp. Let's be honest, I'll make a joke. Valid workman's comp. You can have our service for.
Did you know the neighborhood I grew up in? Is that why you?
You can have our service for a set period of time. When I was in Vermont as a state librarian there, I had a wonderful person who was able to connect with our service. In Vermont, we renamed our what is known Talking Book Library to provide really information about the service itself. So instead of calling it the Vermont Talking Book Services Library, it is known as the ABLE Library, Audio, Braille, Large Print, and Electronic Resources. A person contacted us because their husband was going to have some surgery with their eyes, and they qualified temporarily for it.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. That's a beautiful story. I'm so happy that we had this time to spend together. I want to thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate this. But if you want to know more, like I said, our website, our phone numbers, but feel free to connect with us. And all I can ask is all your listeners to please think about this from a global perspective, because life changes. Also, if you know somebody who could utilize it, definitely today's podcast on children, but grandparents, aunts, uncles, next door neighbors, it's a service that is there to be utilized for those who are having vision impairment and print disabled, where they can't hold a book the way they might want.
Yeah. We've had a really fascinating time speaking to the director of the National Library Service, Jason Broughton. Jason, thank you so very much for being with us.
Jed, thank you, and I apologize for not coming on as soon as I wanted to, but there was a thing called Congress and hearings that I needed to take care of, and that kind of got in our way. But I am here now.
I understand. I understand Congress is a little bit more important than me. That's okay.
But it has been a pleasure, and please let me know how I can assist, or if you ever would like me to come back on to talk about some of the unique parts of the things that we do from programming. Like we had Matthew Whitaker, a wonderful jazz pianist, who is blind and is a user of our service. Stevie Wonder is also a user of our service, and a host of other people who have utilized us as a patron for all the years that we have been here. So thank you.
Awesome. Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guests will be Deborah Underwood and Sam Wedlick. Deborah and Sam are the author and illustrator of Bear Plane. We have a great conversation with them. You don't want to miss it. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, Jason Broughton. The National Library Service, there's so much there. So many great services helping so many wonderful people. Perhaps they could help you. Hopefully, you'll check it out and also share this. Please be sure to share this this episode of the podcast with everyone, because I think there's the National Library Service is doing a great job, but there's so many more people that could use their help. So we need to get out there and help them spread the word. Also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Nicole Belcastro, Ashley Contouris, Mirabella Q. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.